And we are back. And we just finished watching 1997's sci-fi horror classic, Event Horizon, with a runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. We saw this on the Showtime app. Is that where we saw it?
Yep, Showtime Anytime.
Showtime Anytime. Thank you, Showtime Anytime. This is written by Philip Eisner with directing credits to Paul W.S. Anderson, not to be mistaken with the other Paul Anderson director.
I wonder what the film would have been like if he directed.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. You know, it's funny because I got to look at the box office. I don't think this was a big hit in 97.
No, this failed.
This tanked,
this
right?
Bombed. Yeah.
And yet it's gotten a lot of love in latter years.
In latter, yeah, it became a cult
classic.
classic.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this bombed hard.
I think I read $60 million budget.
$60 million budget, and the
20
gross worldwide is only 26 mil.
Yeah.
Wow. That's too bad. This wasn't a bad film. I think
it wasn't. You could definitely see from what I read, there was also like some production issues as far as like rushing things.
Oh, I couldn't tell from the film.
And it got a little weird there at the end. Like,
because they were trying to wrap it up.
There were some slapped in sound effects that kind of didn't seem out of place, and it became sort of Hellraiser in space.
I was just going to say, I think that comparison is right on the nose. That is a good...
And it was a little, and it was a little, Sam Neill was a little inconsistent there in his final appearance. He had eyes again suddenly. It was a little weird, but whatever. All in all, it's a great concept.
I'm surprised they haven't tried to resurrect this.
I read that, I think in 2019, they began doing pre-production or something for a series based upon this property.
I don't know that it's... I wouldn't want to see a series of this. I would want to see a one and done. Like, I would love to see this with a fresh cast and, like, obviously really good special effects.
Yeah, I mean, the special effects weren't terrible.
No, they weren't terrible. I mean, I think they held up really well from 1997.
And the production design was great. That engine was creepy.
Creepy as F, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like the ship and stuff, the
ship design, everything as far as like that goes did not look cheap. They definitely crafted an environment for these actors to work in, and it was really good.
Yeah, it holds up. Up. It's funny, we were having a conversation earlier. I got to be honest, if the sun came hurtling into the earth, I don't want to be off the earth because I don't want to go into space. Space is sexy, but it's also terrifying.
Yeah, space. Nothing in space wants a human being to live there, or visit, or anything.
Yeah,
and that's you're thinking.
Nothing from the movies.
Yeah, there's no air, there's no pressure, there's no heat. You're being douched with radiation constantly. Nothing. Your bones are atrophying. Everything is just terrible about going into space.
No desire.
Unless it's like Star Trek. Star Trek is like the nicest space. There's carpets everywhere. It's you just have like a box that you say, "Hey, give me some Twinkies," and boom, there they are.
There it is. This again confirms my belief that once this planet buys the farm, that's it for me. Yeah. Unless I've died previous to all that, but
we'll be long dead before this planet.
Sure. But for this movie, I feel like, again, I didn't do a deep dive, but I wonder what other stuff in 1997, like this came out in August, so it's like a summer film.
Yeah.
It's a big budget summer film. It's unfortunate that this didn't do better. I mean, I feel like I like this better than his... Well, okay, so the first...
Resident
Evil movie is excellent.
I would not say excellent.
Okay, in comparison to the rest of the series... It's good.
You know what?
Not excellent.
I can't really judge because after the first Resident Evil movie, I was just sort of like checked out. Mm-hmm. And then
there have been so many.
And they're all given a subtitle rather than a number.
Yeah.
So whenever they're on TV, I don't know if there's is there continuity in any of those films?
I mean,
because it seems like
Jovovich is in most of them.
I'm pretty sure I saw Michelle Rodriguez die in the first one, yet I'm pretty sure she's in the rest of them as well.
Listen.
So I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know if that I don't know if that really matters. Yeah, maybe they're all twins. Although there was one where I saw there was like 1 million Mila Jovoviches.
There you go. So there's your answer.
So
I don't think you're supposed to really deep dive on those movies.
Yeah. Those ones you definitely have to put your brain on its lowest setting.
Yes.
To really enjoy.
But this one, for a film from the 90s, from the late 90s, I feel like it was a different time. And I think society, not to be a jerk, but I feel like we were more frivolous in 1997. We definitely didn't have pandemics and stuff like that happening and just complete destructions of societies because of social media.
The 90s were great.
Yeah, the 90s were great. Weren't they? Happy. Everything was whatever. Yeah. And so you have a movie like this, which is very dark, very dark. I mean, I think absolutely, you 100% hit it on the head. Hellraiser in space. This is absolutely that.
That's what it became. I feel like the way this film starts, it's very, atmospheric. It's very spooky. It's like it's almost like a ghost story. Mm-hmm. Or there's something definitely going on. There's no, I would say, monster in this, really. Not at least not in the beginning. Mm-hmm. There's no physical threat monster. It's more psychological.
Yes.
And it's relying on atmosphere and creepiness, and the sets really help deliver that.
Yeah.
Everybody's performance is good in it.
Yeah. Nobody's phoning it in. Everyone's committed to their roles.
And then I just feel like you reach a certain point where Weir, Sam Neill's character, he starts going from being a kind of because he seems like he's haunted by clearly the death of his wife,
right?
And then he's a bit excited over the fact that he gets the ship that he helped build, or the engine that he helped build. It's been found again, mm-hmm. And then it's. You see that character, and then it's sort of like his descent
into madness.
It accelerates kind of really quickly to the point where there's that scene where him and Laurence Fishburne are walking through the big central corridor,
right?
And Laurence Fishburne basically is like, "Yeah, we're gonna screw this ship. We're just gonna blow this thing into a million pieces as soon as we leave."
I wish he hadn't said that.
Yeah, and at that point, he just goes, Sam Neill, Weir, just goes, "I am home." And he just becomes all sinister, and he literally disappears into darkness.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we're really getting into it now.
Yeah.
And it's it's almost like the tone and the pace of the movie it accelerated so quickly and in such a crazy direction that it became suddenly, it was like, all right, we've gone from atmospheric haunted house sort of movie to Hellraiser in space.
Yeah. I completely understand what you're saying, but it didn't bother me. That didn't bother me.
It's not so terrible that you're just thrown out of it. It's sort of like an unexpected bump in the road that you weren't really expecting, and it's like it almost takes you a bit out of it, but not quite. But it's there. It's noticeable. It is noticeable. It's not like a smooth transition between the two types of films.
Understood. And again, it didn't impact my enjoyment of the film. I think that they could have made it longer, but I don't think they should have. I think that this was the sweet spot. This film is an hour and 36 minutes, and if it had been longer and if there had been more exposition or explanation, I think that would have taken me out.
Funnily enough that you say that, because when I was reading about it, the original cut of the film was over 2 hours long.
Oh, wow.
And that was when they make the film, they do the original cut, and then they say, okay, well, now you got to whittle it down. You got to cut some certain things out. So, oh my God, that's so gory. You can't.
Because 2 hours isn't common in 1997.
No, absolutely not, especially for a
sci-fi
genre film
horror
like this
thing. Yeah.
And basically, they gave him such little time because originally he was supposed to have, I think all directors are supposed to have 10 weeks to edit a film. And there was some sort of thing going on with Titanic. and they wanted to get it out before Titanic for some reason.
They should have waited.
And
it didn't
because
matter
of that, they were like, you get 6 weeks. And then he had to do reshoots, so it was actually only at 4 weeks to edit it. And when he re-edited it after that initial 2-hour cut, he felt like he removed too much. He felt like if I could have put there's 10 minutes of this film I wish I could have added back in, and it would have, like, I guess maybe smoothed things out or made things a little bit better. But he never got that chance. And then after the film got like more cult status, there was like all this talk of, oh well, we'll do director's cut, but all the footage was destroyed. All the stuff that got cut was like not preserved properly, and the only copy that exists, I think, from what I read, was like a VHS tape of the original 2-hour cut, and it's like such poor quality that he's just like,
yeah,
that'll never happen.
That's too bad.
But a lot of it is just like, apparently the first time they showed it, people were just like, Jesus Christ, this thing is gory.
Yeah.
And there are like very gory bits.
Sure.
But apparently it was like a lot worse, to the point where like
people were walking out or something.
I mean, there's all the hyperbole. Oh my God, people fainted.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
But I think he said that he got away with a lot of that stuff because they saved filming that for like the reshoots. Mm-hmm. And like that was like so far at the end of production that the producers never actually got to see that before it was put into an edit of the movie. Okay. So he was able to get away with just absolute horrible gore in the film.
But it's not. There is that, but it didn't feel gratuitous to me, and it didn't feel.
They definitely cut. You could see that a lot of it is like, especially when
you see the scenes of what happened to the previous cruise.
You see that, and you see certain things, and there's like little glimpses, and it looks like it looks seriously horrific.
Yeah.
But also the way Jason Isaacs' character meets his end. Yeah. That you could see that there was probably a lot more going on, because that looked like it was cut up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like he dies. Well, oops, spoiler. It's almost like he dies off screen.
Are we hitting almost 30 years now?
Almost 30 years. Yeah. In 4 years, yeah.
There's no
1997.
If you haven't seen it, don't. It's your fault by now.
So I also wanted to kind of, it felt like, the movie also felt like, to me, again, this is my interpretation, like there was a lot of like winking, in the sense like, okay, so you have the Lewis and Clark, which is famous explorers of the 1800s, right?
Yeah.
Mapping out the Americas. And then you have event horizons, which are
the edge of a black hole.
Right. And this is a term that was coined in the 20th century. So it's also kind of exploration, in this case, space exploration, right? You have black holes, which are in space, devoid of light. And I guess, what was the, where am I going with this?
I don't know.
I had a point to make, and now it's just completely flown out of my head. Just, it felt like it was like an inside joke, kind of like the juxtaposition of the stuff in the past, the Lewis and Clark. Although you would think that since the Lewis and Clark came in the future, right, that maybe that should have been called the Event Horizon, but that wouldn't make sense, right? So the Lewis and Clark charts a path to the Event Horizon
that's kind of what happened.
Right, but the setup is they've gotten a distress signal. In the beginning, you're told that everything is top secret. Yeah. And they've gotten a distress signal, and they're now going, because they're a rescue ship, kind of like paralleling to Alien, right? You've got like this distress thing. You're going out into this vast space thing that, like you said, isn't friendly.
No.
Wants to murder you. And they go and get to the Event Horizon, and yet when they get there, there's nothing there. And at first, everything is sort of in shadows and darkness, much like a black hole. There's no light. You can't really see. But then as the story progresses, you're given glimpses into little things. There's the blood splatter in that room that then ties into when Peters finally, I guess, decodes the CD that she pulled out, the captain's log, and they see how the previous crew just completely devolved into madness and just started basically eating each other or mutilating and
some
murdering
big
each other.
gore orgy.
Yeah.
They're all nude and eating their own hands and gouging their own eyes out
and telling each other to save yourselves from hell.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I thought it was interesting how you juxtapose like the old and the new, I guess the past and the present, or the future, I guess, in this case, right? I laughed when you were like, that was pretty, what was it? What's the word I'm looking for? You were like, this happened in 2040. That's pretty.
Oh yeah, at 2015 we started mining like asteroids or something.
Yeah.
It was like that's a pretty optimistic view of society with 2015. And then like 15 years later, we're on Mars and we're just shooting ahead.
Space. Yeah, conquering space.
Society really had it together. Boy, the 90s really built this weird sense of optimism and confidence that just did not pan out
I was
at
say,
all.
That in 10 years, like all these major breakthroughs would happen.
Yeah. Jesus.
So I thought that part was interesting, and I also thought that it was interesting how you go in with this crew, not everyone makes it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious how, the three main people, there was more than three people that perished on the ship, but the three main people in my mind, Peters, the woman, Weir, although he resurrects in a way, and then Miller, like they all seemed like they were atoning for sins. So like you said, like Weir had this crazy guilt complex about somehow being responsible or feeling responsible for his wife's suicide.
Mm-hmm.
You come to learn later in the story that Miller also harbors a secret that
he has guilt.
That he has guilt.
It all seems to be about guilt. Guilt.
Although I don't know what Smithy's.
You know what? Perhaps Smithy had no guilt.
Right.
There's two possible explanations for Smithy. Either he wasn't in the ship enough for it to affect him because he was always busy outside welding stuff.
Right.
Or he's just lived a life without guilt.
But the other thing was...
Or at least traumatic guilt.
But he did not like that ship. He didn't like being on it. He didn't want to be anywhere near it. He wanted to fix the Lewis and Clark and get the hell out of there.
Yeah, he was us. It's like as soon as
he was one of the first buyers into that.
Yeah.
As soon as to be here.
As soon as both of us saw like the lights flickering behind that lady, and there's just like meat and skulls like just bonded to the window frames of the deck. We're just like, everybody should just leave.
Yeah, this is not the place to be. Yeah.
Smith was, that was him.
Yeah. And then I didn't know, the Jason Isaacs character was kind of interesting because he was sort of like muscle, even though he was an EMS guy, he was like a medical guy or like
I feel like there was more to his character than was let on.
Yeah.
Because not only that, but there was also like the scene where like his final scene when his shirt gets ripped open, he's got like a big scar going down his chest. So there had to have been some kind of backstory to this guy that just never probably got cut out of the movie or never materialized.
Yeah, we also found it interesting, like, he goes postal in that one scene. And it's so funny because he's usually, like, even keel. But even when he's talking to Miller towards the end, before his encounter with Weir, he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of him.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he was, like, muscle.
Yeah, even though he was the EMS guy, he seemed like the guy who would be most likely to just kill somebody and walk away with no regrets.
Right. He did things that had to get done.
Maybe that's why he wasn't really affected by the ship either. He was incapable of guilt. He was like...
Yeah.
I guess he was like a sort of sociopath almost, but, a productive one.
Right.
And the only one other, like Cooper.
He was like the only one... he was the only other one that was like... He basically was on the ship for like, 2 minutes maybe? Because he was also outside for the most part. Yeah.
He was more like a sort of a happy-go-lucky type person. And I think the only thing that made, I forgot what, Baby Bear.
Justin.
What made Justin lose his mind was going through the damn portal and seeing apparently the most horrible things imaginable, which just broke his brain.
Yeah.
So
But
the people that were really, really affected by the essence of the ship were the people who bore traumatic guilt.
Right. It was interesting because they reference hell, so I guess there's religious connotation here, although not.
Well, sort of, because when Weir is speaking at the end, he's just like, hell is just a word to you. Mm-hmm. So it's not technically hell like biblical hell. I don't think they're really talking about it. I just think it's just some sort of dark place that's
madness inducing.
They described it as absolute chaos and evil.
Right.
So yeah, that would fit the idea of hell, but I doubt that there's actual demons and devils poking people in the butt and stuff like that.
I mean, the place where they're going doesn't seem like it's fun either. So
no, I mean, they kept showing little flashes, and there's just people with like spikes through their faces and barbed wire around their eyes, and it was really gruesome. And apparently, like I was saying before it was cut down, there was apparently a lot more of that.
You know what? I think he did a great job, because it's like you see just enough to get a taste for it to get like this. Another thing that I think the film did really well was this sense of unease throughout. You start,
especially as soon as you get on that ship,
right?
Just from the way it looked,
right. Just again, it's funny because obviously this filmmaker, and I'm assuming the writers are also influenced by things like Alien, which is, what was the tagline? Like, if you scream in space, will anybody hear you, or something? I think that was like the original, or something to that effect. In space,
no one could hear you scream.
Something like that, right? So here too, you kind of continue that theme, right? Because you're going to a place, you think that you're doing a good thing, much like an alien, right? You're going to rescue, you're doing this thing, and yet you get sucked into this, for lack of a better word, event horizon that basically consumes everyone, with the exception, I think, of Cooper. I think Cooper was the only one. I mean, I think his big peril was kind of just being jettisoned into space without a safety net, but he managed to overcome that.
Yeah.
And
he was there was a point where he became the comedy relief of the movie. Maybe actually even a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Like when there's a scene of him basically holding on to that piece of debris as it's hurtling out into space, and he's just like, motherfucker. It was it was a lot. And then like when he's outside the window and
Sam Neill shoots
at the window, he was
he was like in a Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
He just became like the comedy relief, and it was a bit that was tonally not in line with the rest of the movie.
Film. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but it takes away.
It doesn't damage the film to the point where you're just like, I can't watch this anymore. It's just one of those things it's another one of those bumps.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like this film had a lot of stuff going for it. I'm guessing a lot of it sort of, maybe it didn't do well in the editing process.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was, I mean, from what you were saying, it sounded
and it
like
sort of
that
makes sense considering,
because he only really got 4 weeks, and 4 weeks isn't really a long time to edit a film.
Yeah.
All of that aside, I absolutely I completely concur with some of what you're saying, but at the same time, I think that making this longer would have also taken away from it. I love that it's just an hour and change. Like, if this was one of these monumental long movies, I think it just would have been too much, and it would have dragged. But you see just enough of the horror and the gore to keep you in this just really tense and dread throughout the film, and I think that really, really, really works. I think that works gangbusters in a film like this because it's sci-fi, I guess, but I think it's more horror than sci-fi. But I feel like it's more horror than sci-fi because you have all these added elements of the guilt, whether it's like survivor guilt or this whole like ghost ship possession situation that's going on. So to me, it's more of a horror than it is. I mean, yes, there's elements of sci-fi and thriller and drama, whatever, but I feel like it's distinctly a horror film in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. It's the setting is sci-fi, but the genre, the story is horror.
Yes, yes. And again, for horror movies, I mean, there are exceptions. You have stuff like Hereditary where you can go because you're doing something that relies on just psychological. So I think you can get away with stuff like that a little bit more in those types of film. But something like this, I think the shorter time really works. And I think that having it be longer or making it longer
I don't think it. I think the time limit or the amount of the length of the movie is perfect. Is spot on perfect. Yeah. I'm just saying that there are like a couple of little bumps that sort of
fair.
Maybe if the editing was a little bit different or things got shifted around a bit, it may have smoothed those out a bit, and maybe also, like I said, those fist fight sound effects towards the end
not needed. Yes,
a little Starsky and Hutch there.
It's too bad that there isn't like a pristine proof of this film or the entirety of what was filmed, because I'd be curious to see what Anderson would do to kind of pad it out and make it more of his vision. It's too bad. And again, I'm really shocked. I mean, we recycle so much stuff. I'm really shocked that something like this hasn't already been remade.
Yeah, especially considering it became like
a cult classic.
Like you said, a cult classic.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what? Like I said, they're developing a show.
But
nobody knows if that's actually going to go through.
I don't see this as a show. Do you? Like a weekly thing, or
I don't know. Maybe like a mini series. I don't know. Maybe like like what they do with those
HBO things.
Sort of like the Haunting of Hill House and
all right,
Fall of the House of Usher, like a one and done.
Okay,
one and done season where it's just a long story like that. I could see.
Okay, fair enough. That I could see. But
yeah.
I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna keep doing this. Like, no,
I couldn't see that. No, I could not see this becoming some sort of forever ongoing thing with like 8 seasons.
Right. No, this would have to end after the first one.
A story like, I think that's probably why a lot of these horror TV shows
don't do well.
No, they do one season.
Right.
It's a season. Each story is a season, and that's it. And if there is a second season, it's a different story, like American Horror Story and whatever they're doing with the one, like the Hill House and House of Usher. Yeah. They're all made by the same people. But they're just doing a different story each year.
Yeah.
Which,
okay, fair enough.
That makes sense. And if they did, hey, it's Event Horizon, and this year is, we're going to go in space and travel on a portal through hell.
I would love to see it. I mean, I think this movie still holds up, and I would love to see it with, like I said, a fresh cast, a really tight script, and like newer special effects. I think this would do really well. And I kind of like your idea of like this being like kind of a season and an installment of an anthology series, sort of like what they did with The Terror, right? Like I love the first season of The Terror.
The first season of Terror is absolutely great.
Yeah.
And from what I saw, the second, it seemed like it was good.
We never finished it. I think we saw the first 2 episodes, and then we just kind of were like, oh, all right, whatever. We should probably try and finish that. But like, if they did something like that, maybe in space, next is like, I don't know, somebody woke up with a detached head next to them, and then they're trying to figure out how they got here and what the hell is going on. Like,
I like the ideas of. I love just the one and done season.
Yes, agreed. I do too.
And if that's what they're planning with this,
then yes.
Like I said, then yes, I'm on board. If they're gonna somehow drag this out for Event Horizon season 2, no.
Yeah, that
it
doesn't
should
work.
end the ship. That's it. At the end of the first season, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, and talk to Anderson and have him come aboard and have him kind of guide.
What the name was, Peter Wingard or something.
That name sounds familiar. I'm too lazy to look it up right now, but yeah. I mean, that all aside, I really, really enjoyed this. I'd give this an 8.
I'd probably give this a 7.
I think it's an 8. I think the effects decent. I mean, for 1997, I mean, that engine room.
The sets are absolutely amazing. That I really love that creepy ass engine. It's like basically it's like a Hellraiser ball surrounded by 2 rings
that constantly
that are
rotate.
spinning. There's spikes all over the place for no reason.
Yeah. And remember when Sam Neill opened the thing and he's going through those green
those
tunnels?
Corridors of weird circuit boards.
I couldn't tear my eyes away. I was like,
there was some real thought put into that production design. It was beautiful. And then when it's on fire at the end and it's still rotating and spinning,
being all crazy and stuff.
Yeah, that looked so damn cool.
Yeah.
And then when it lines up and you see the light, and I loved how they would show the eye of the person and you'd see the thing lining up with their pupil.
Yeah.
Very well done.
Yeah, I agree. I also kind of felt bad for Miller at the end because he basically sacrifices himself for Justin Stark and...
You could not talk about that.
Oops, sorry.
Save some... I mean, we don't have to be anti-spoiler at all, but at least save that for
all right,
I'll
take that out. Yeah, I think, again, for a movie that's almost 30 years old, this holds up. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's decent. It's a great runtime, great production values, great casting, great performances, and it'd be interesting to see like what a modern take of this would be. Yeah, don't remake Persuasion. Remake this.
Yes.
Don't remake Overboard or Point Break. Remake this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And get, now that we've got a contract with the writers, let's get them in there. Let's get them working and let's get them.
Yeah, there's a lot of meat on this.
Yeah.
You definitely work with it.
Yeah, this definitely could be something. It would be interesting to see. I'm here for it. I'm a buyer. All right. 7, 8. Absolutely. Go check out
Event Horizon.
Paul W.S. Anderson's Event Horizon from 1997, rated R. There is brief nudity. There wasn't a lot of cursing. There was maybe 1 or 2 words, I think. Saucy language.
Yeah. I mean, it is rated R.
It is rated R. Yeah. There is some gore.
Yeah.
It goes by quick, but you still see it.
Yeah, it's like very disturbing looking.
Yes.
You get just enough to be disturbed.
Yes. Agreed. And I think that's, yeah. All right. That's it from us, and we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.